Right, let's bring you this now. President Ramaphosa has received praise for his appearance at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry this week, at least from some quarters. He gave testimony in his capacity as the president of the ANC. Now, this coincided with ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule's deadline to step aside. Almost 8 months ago, the party's NEC resolved that all senior members, as well as leaders accused and criminally charged for wrongdoing, should step aside until they're cleared. This weekend, the ANC top six is apparently meeting to hear Magashule's decision on whether he will indeed step aside. To discuss all of this and what it actually means for the landscape of South African politics, let's bring in political analyst Dumisani Tembe, who joins us now via our telephone line. Dumisani, great to chat to you. Thanks so much for making time for us here on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. I want to start with the broad strokes, so to speak. Let's begin by placing the developments of the week gone by and getting perspective on that. What does President Ramaphosa's appearance at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry tell us about the role that the inquiry is now playing versus the role it should have been playing in our democratic ecosystem?
Yeah, good morning to you and good morning to the viewers. Look, the first thing for me, it was the difficulty of the president of the ruling party, that happens to be a liberation movement, appearing before a commission and being interrogated about its own internal processes and procedures and its weaknesses, basically. In fact, I think the appearance, what it has done the most, is to show that the ANC is incapable of governing itself internally, of ensuring internal discipline and the ethos and cohesion within itself. And then unfortunately, these internal difficulties within the ruling party, because it has been unable to manage itself internally, it has then outsourced that internal discipline, management and leadership and cohesion to a commission of the state, which basically means that you now expect Zondo to make findings on internal disciplinary management and leadership issues of the ANC. And the difficulty with that is that society now sits with a party that is unable to govern itself, because the commission cannot sort out the internal issues of the ANC. And for me, that has been the crux of the matter, that if you had the ANC that could have behaved like the Communist Party of China, with a very strong internal ethos on discipline, you will not have had the commission to deal with essentially is the inability of the ruling party to govern itself, which places South Africa's democracy at risk.
Yeah. If we follow from what you're saying, it's very easy to connect how the ANC's inability not to govern itself could lead to the type of factionalism where there are, all kinds of ramifications. What often we leave behind is that whilst there are winners and losers within the ANC, the casualty is always South Africans, you and me, who are at the mercy of being governed by the governing party itself. What needs to change there in the arrangement of our politics to ensure that that doesn't happen, to ensure that South Africans don't become casualties of the infighting within the ANC?
Look, I'm not sure what needs to happen, because the sum total of what you are saying, which is correct, is that if the ruling party is well oiled within itself, then the state institutions are going to perform well.
Right.
But if there's chaos within the ruling party, the state institutions are also going to be caught up in that hullabaloo. This is why, at this point in time, you have even the judicial institutions that are constantly being under attack and on the basis that they have been politicized, including the Office of the Public Protector, for that matter. But based on what is coming out from the Commission of Inquiry on State Capture, when Zondo was questioning those that have been deployed by the ANC to be in Parliament and play an oversight role, one interesting thing that we questioned was, are you there defending the interests of South Africa or defending the interests of the ruling party? And it turns out that, the dominant answers indicated that MPs, defend the interests of the party where they come from. So if things have to change, perhaps they have to change it at that level, where the electoral system and the public representative actually represent the public rather than a political party.
Yeah, we're certainly getting a whole lot more calls pushing in that direction. But I mean, speaking about the way through which the president was interrogated, was it even realistic to separate Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC president, from Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, considering how often these two overlap and how significantly they overlap, at least in our arrangement?
Well, my chief, that's a very fictitious line, or let me put it nicely, it's a bad line. The idea that Ramaphosa appears as an ANC president, not as a state president, that will come back as a representative, there's a very, very thin line. In the first place, he becomes a state president on the basis of an ANC processes and tickets and procedures. And you could tell even from the answers that he was giving that at some point he was speaking as a state president and not necessarily as a leader of the role. So that's a very, very fictitious thin line, and I can bet that the type of answers that he will give when he comes back as a state president, they won't necessarily differ from what you have said, because that's one of the fallacies of the South African politics, that you can distinguish the two. And in fact, this is why there's extreme sense of factionalism in the ruling party, because by becoming, the dominant faction in the ruling party, then that grouping or individuals have access to state institutions and positions. This is why you find that even those external forces that fund, politicians, they don't necessarily fund the party, they fund the individuals that they think they are likely to win the internal race in a party to become the president, the mayor, or the premier for that. So perhaps we must be very wary about this fictitious distinction between what is seen to be the ruling party vis-a-vis what is the state. It's a very thin line.
Right. Speaking about the race within the ANC itself, let's look at the week ahead. If the story in the Sunday Times this morning is anything to go by, apparently Ace Magashule will engage in further consultations, this time again with members of the ANC top six. Again, depending on which publication you're going with, he may or may not step aside. We are certainly getting the sense, though, that this is an issue that's far from over, and in many respects, the ball will once again be in Cyril Ramaphosa's court. What ought he do next?
Look, I don't think we should personalize it around the Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm sure it makes, media interest to personalize it around Ramaphosa, but this is it's a collective leadership issue of the ANC.
Right.
And in most cases, you see, for me, Cyril Ramaphosa, the pressure on Cyril Ramaphosa is that he inherited the burden of the weaknesses of leadership of the organization over time. So it's very easy to use Ramaphosa, Zuma to be the scapegoat of what is essentially a lack of organizational discipline over time. So in fact, if the ANC was well disciplined internally, ACE would have stepped aside by now. So these flashpoints, they still go back to the challenges that the ruling party faces internally. And this is why, as a result, I usually say that we are at a stage where the ruling party is governed by the rule of the stronger faction rather than its own constitutional or party resolutions for that matter.
Absolutely.
So what's likely to happen moving forward? It will be more flexing of factional muscles, and the dominant faction will have its way out rather than what essentially the resolutions say.
Dumisani Tembe, always great getting your insights. Thanks very much for your time, sir. Dumisani Tembe is a political analyst joining us there via our telephone line.